Yo, 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 what's going on YouTube? It's your boy Nate Great coming at you with another live. You already know if you're new to the channel, like, share, comment, and subscribe. To all the returning friends and family, you already know it's peace and blessings. Give y'all some time to tune in. Apologies for the half hour pushback. But you gotta take care of certain situations. So, but you still gonna get this. Um, Definitely want to talk about this scenario tonight. So, and the link is pinned in case anybody want to chime in. Susanna, baby, Juice, baby. Appreciate y'all. Appreciate y'all. First things first, you already know. Hopefully, everybody having a blessed and productive Monday. Hopefully, everybody enjoyed their Thanksgiving holiday weekend. Hopefully, everybody got a chance to spend time with family and friends. Those celebrating birthdays, hopefully, y'all enjoyed yourself. Those who are celebrating birthdays this week, like I said again, hopefully, you keeping yourself safe, keep yourself vigilant, very observant, and just enjoy every moment. Didi, baby. Appreciate everybody that tuned in yesterday for the conversation. Definitely was a triggering one to a degree, but nonetheless, one that was needed, you know. And again, something that we got to stand on. But, you know, definitely feel like, it was a overall great conversation. Everybody was participating in the chat. You already know what it is. Geraldine, baby. P. Moses, my guy. What's going on? What's going on, y'all? Tasha, baby. See y'all up in here. See y'all up in here, man. Listen, yesterday was definitely a great conversation. For those that missed it, you definitely catch the replay. But to be quite honest, I stand on where I was talking about, though. Stand on that, though, because it's certain things and certain scenarios that really can't be changed from the ground up, you know. But, you know, solely up to the people that actually want it. So, and again, for those who wasn't here yesterday, definitely catch the replay. But again, hopefully y'all enjoyed yourselves over the weekend. You know, I'm good, sis. You already know. I had to come and speak to the people for the night. You know how it is. Because I think this is another thing that kind of plays hand in hand with what I was talking about yesterday in some instances. You know, and like I said, it's just we got to come to a conclusion that, you know, how do we expect certain things to change within our parameter when we ain't trying to change what's around the parameter? So, it's just, good questions. Like tonight, um, got a question. You know, when it comes down to the education of this generation, right? Especially those that are coming into young adulthood. The question is, who's to blame for a lot of the educational failure? Is it the school system, or is it the parents, or is it both? Good question to ask. It's kind of complex in some scenarios, but I don't believe so. Because my take on it is this: um, it all has something to do. They all go hand in hand. I'm gonna be real with you, and this is not a shot at nobody. This is just real life. There are a lot of people right now At least in this generation, I see that could barely read or even write past a certain level. That's not a good thing, especially when you in certain job fields and markets, because you're gonna have to do some form of paperwork, you know. And if you can't even, understand the basics of what you need to do, that's a problem. James, what's going on? Coffee cups in the chat, son. See you up in here. I think that's a problem. And I'm not taking no knocks at nobody because again, some people really do have a hard time learning. But then again, there are some people who don't necessarily have a hard time learning. They just don't want to learn. They want to just, be coddled and carried. And I'm gonna be quite honest with you. That's a bad look too. I'm gonna say the difference between generation I came up in and this generation, because I'm gonna definitely get to the meat and potatoes of this one. I'm from the era where if you didn't complete what you were supposed to complete by the end of that school year, you were supposed to get left back regardless. Unless you did some form of summer school, but if it's way past that, you was getting left back. I'm from that era. I'm from that era where they was holding you accountable. They was holding your parents accountable for your education. I'm from that era. The era we in now is making it too easy for these kids to just skate through life. Give me a second, y'all. My bad, y'all. Y'all already know. But yeah, I'm from an era where you and your parents are being held accountable as far as your education was concerned. If you didn't make the deadline on what you had to make the deadline on, guess what? You was left back. Now, if it was something the way you probably might just have to do, like I said, summer school, or you might have to take some classes during that school year just to get where you had to get to, then that's what you had to do. Or you had the option of going to go get a GED if you felt school wasn't really, you know, it for you. But you still had to learn. You still had to put in the time and the effort. Still had to pass that major test so you could get that piece of paper, right? I'm from that era. I'm from that era where, again, it wasn't no skating through easy. And even when we thought it was easy, it was never that easy. Why it wasn't that easy? Because technology wasn't where it's at now. And it wasn't. Yeah, we did have social media and shit, but it still wasn't like how it is today. We had internet, but it wasn't like how it is today. Nowadays, you ain't even gotta write or read nothing no more. Damn near all of these quote unquote smart devices is reading and doing shit for you. And that's real. That's real right there. Nowadays, it's getting too easy for them. They don't necessarily have to read books like how we had to do it and actually do the research to make sure we got all the accurate information for whatever homeworks and assignments. I came through those eras where, again, you had to do what you had to do. And if your kid didn't make it, guess what? You're left back and do it again. Now, where things went so easy now, or has been easy, I'm going to say over the last, what, almost 20 years, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to have to go back to when they established No Child Left Behind, because that was an easy way to again just pass these kids, even when these kids wasn't learning or wasn't on a level that they should be on. So you basically telling them most they gotta do is just come to school, even if they don't do all the homework, all the important curriculums, assignments, tests, all of that. Even if they fail these state tests and all that other shit, still pass them to the next grade. That's crazy. I'm not gonna lie, that's crazy. We had to go through hell and back to try to get to our next grades and hopefully graduate. These kids don't even gotta do much and they still graduate. At least some of them that are. If they ain't in no form of, trouble as far as they not locked up in juvenile or whatever the case is, majority of these kids now, they barely even read it. And they getting passed all the way past high school. Our era couldn't do that. Non-less prime example. Only advantage I think some people had even back in the day was if they kids was really that smart, they might have got their grade. They might have had got bumped up a grade or two. Like you might have a situation where you got somebody who looked like they should be in a lower grade, and they sitting in the same class with you. It can happen, but that's because if those kids are really being taught at home the way they supposed to be taught at home, being read to, homework helped with, studying with them when they need help. And sometimes you gotta quiz your kids, even during the summertime. Some instances you're gonna have to, because remember when school is back in session, you gotta know some of this stuff. You gotta know damn near all this stuff, because half of this stuff is gonna be presented to you as soon as you get back. If you ain't got clear knowledge or any form of, you know, history that you could really do whatever with, it was messed up for the year. Or you could have been messed up for a little bit, period. These days, like I said, you can have a quote unquote chat GBT or something along those lines, and that shit is going to do all the work for you. Like I said, it's sad that you can't read or write past a certain grade level. When again, this is going to be important for you, especially those who say they want to be a part of the workforce or they want to be a part of these big name jobs and everything else. Even the smallest jobs, you got to have some form of reading knowledge because you got to know what the hell you do. Like I said, that's just like if you doing pesticide work. Remember, you got to deal with chemicals. You got to deal with a little bit of whatever. So you got to know how much to put in so it don't be too strong and it don't do something to you. Even that part is important. Again, knowing how to read, knowing how to do simple equations of the math and how to make everything the way you're supposed to make it, at least when it comes to, you know, making the pesticide and the whatever insecticide sprays that you're supposed to be using when you're in that field, you got to know everything. But Files, what's going on? You already know if y'all just tuned in, hit the like button. Well, let's be real. If you don't even know that, or if you can't barely read that, you can damage yourself or harm yourself. Like I said, everything nowadays is being read to somebody. It ain't like they sitting there reading it. No, their devices is telling them everything and reading what's going on. Crazy. You know, and that's the thing I said, you know, it's sad in a ways because again, you know, how is it you could barely understand what's being said to you as far as on a piece of paper? Even in those instances right there, right? You ain't sure of what the hell you reading. You might sign something that you ain't even aware is going to be a problem for you somewhere down the future. That's just like again signing a contract, but not reading the fine print or not seeing what's what. Mess around and put yourself in the type of deal or type of scenario where it's gonna be hard for you to do anything, or you might just be stuck by a binding contract. Even if it's something you don't want to be, you'll end up being that way. Or even with the same thing, we're trying to sign a lease for a home or sign a lease for an apartment, something along those lines. If you could barely read anything, shit, or if you could half read it, it's still going to be a disservice to you. Like I said, the kids is barely even reading books nowadays. You know, that was the importance too, because guess what? These libraries was and still is important to a degree, because guess what? It ain't about just the Wi-Fi. Because some people just think, oh, I'll go to the library and get some Wi-Fi. Shouldn't just be about Wi-Fi. Gotta remember, it's still books the internet. And there are books that you possibly can still use. Right? We gotta be real about that. There's books that you probably still use that has more accurate information than what the hell you getting online. Because sometimes some of the things you Google up don't be accurate. If they ain't even accurate with their maps, what makes you think a lot of times they're gonna be accurate with all the information, especially if it's specific information that you could be looking for? Exactly, Geraldine. That's the truth. Like I said, there was a lot of things. Yes, and I'm gonna say this on multiple levels. There's multiple things that's leading to what I'm talking about. People barely reading or writing past a certain level, which is the sad part. Again, y'all done took out certain things. Like that's why I'm going in about it. Like prime example, they took out certain programs in the schools that are important. But then you gotta look at it too. For them, that's one less course, or that's one less thing they gotta worry about teaching these kids. See, I'm gonna go in both directions because just as much as the school systems are part of the reasons why some of these kids are failing or not graduating at a high rate, or why they're not where they should be at by a certain time frame. And again, it also goes with what's being taught at home. Facts, you know, and that's the thing. That is the thing right there. Like, there's no way you can tell me that they don't have it easier now than what we did coming up. Like I said, we understand that the school system always been a fickle system, but in the same time, they held us to a certain standard. Serious, baby. East Dad, what's going on, my guy? Like I said, they got it easier now than we ever had it. But the sad part about it is giving them the easy way out is kind of backfiring in some instances. Because again, it should be no reason why you come into young adulthood and you could barely read or write the way you're supposed to, or like most people would know how to read or write. Even doing the simplest things like identifying what's being said, even if it's being said in the correct manner. You know, Like I said, they took out cursive writing in most of the schools, and not all of them. So a lot of these people don't know how to even sign their own name, or at least sign their name in script, or whatever language you was taking up, whether it been, you taking up Russian, you taking up Chinese, you taking up Spanish, whatever. We had to go through all of that. It ain't the same no more. Really ain't the same no more. Like I said, that easy way out for them is kind of damaging them and hurting. That's a prime example. Your child should know how to write an essay, a paragraph, or just write whatever the assignment could be. In some instances, that's how it normally was. The whole point of repetition and learning certain things, even when you got home, you had to learn and study certain things because, again, it's about repetition. It's about knowing what you need to know. Like I said, it is sad because, again, they implemented that no child left behind, which, again, is just, it's pointless to say so because, again, you just saying, well, we don't care as long as they get up out the school. We don't care if we pass them. We don't care how much they learn. We don't care if they learn anything at all. But that's the sad point about it. Because again, in some instances, we shouldn't be dead last when it comes down to education. Whatever curriculums are being done now, because I haven't been to school in forever. So I know everything changed up. Especially after that No Child Left Behind got enacted. I was well out of high school after that part. But even when I was in high school, shit, I had to go through it. If I didn't make whatever I was supposed to make by the end of the year, I probably took a chance of getting left back. So again, it's way different there. And then technology is making it even easier for them, like I said, because again, you don't even gotta read a book. You could let the damn technology and device tell you what's going on. But even still, I've always felt it was important for you to learn how to read and how to write properly, but also just reading and understanding what's being said to you. Because it hands hand in hand. If you can't even do the simplest thing like fill out a job application the right way, you might mess around, make a mistake, and then now look, you might not get no call back. Because regardless to what, now that technology has evolved the way it did, there's no excuse for some of y'all not to know what you're reading or know what you're doing, especially on the computer. I ain't super computer savvy, but I know enough. Chill, will, baby. And I think that is the saddest thing about it. Even in school right now, yeah, you might not have to read as much books because again, they using computers, laptops, iPads, all this other stuff in a lot of these schools. But even still, you gotta know how to write correctly. You gotta know how to make sure you don't type in the wrong areas, and you gotta understand again what you're reading. You know, come on now, man. And that's the thing, man. Like it's always important to read up on things, especially when it's involved in some form of history you might not have no knowledge on, or knowledge that we might be utilizing today. Especially there's always updated knowledge on things that we learn. But see, in this generation right now, for what I see, as long as they know how to fill out their name and just the basics, everything is all good. But again, it's important to read what the hell you're typing for or what you're doing. You know, and that's the thing. You know, I feel that is important. You know, I think the schools should honestly go back to the way it used to do things. In some instances, if your child is not meeting the required standards to make it to the next grade, then they should repeat the next grade. Or they should repeat the grade that they're in now before they even get past to the next grade. Because again, it was about learning and elevating, knowing what you need to know for the next chapter of your school duration period. Like I said, we didn't have these. So even if we thought we could just breeze through school, we couldn't. If we thought we was just going to get an easy pass in the next grade, we didn't. Because there were important things that were required to be done, not just by the school or not just by the city, but the state itself. So how the hell did No Child Left Behind become the solution to what we talking about now? Come on, now. I'm honestly saying it because again, it's not doing nothing but just setting the wrong example, even for the future. Oh, you don't have to go to school. You don't have to read. You don't even have to look at your like. This is my thing too, and I had to bring it back up again. I can remember we couldn't have no type of electronical devices or anything that they felt was going to be a distraction in the class. And 9 out of 10, if the teacher took it, either your parent had to come get it, or was sitting at the desk or whatever else until the end of the year. It was your choice. But nowadays they have the choice. They still be having their phones out, still be doing certain things. Some of them are doing TikTok videos and everything else. We couldn't do that shit back in the day. We couldn't do it. But now it seems like I said, you're giving these kids the easy way out. I don't have to sit here and learn. I don't have to sit here and do what you asking me to do. I can just do what the hell I want to do, and I'm still going to get past to the next grade. See, that's where again it messed up. You know, it's crazy. Nah, it's old faggies, dad. Man, listen, that's just a lot of it. Technology does break down. That's the truth. Man, listen, if things was to crash and you had to go back to the old way of doing things, would you be able to do it? Or would you be relying on technology all day? This is what people fail to realize. Yes, it was a gift. It's also a curse. Technology is a gift and a curse because now again, if things was to happen, certain things was to shut down, you're gonna have to rely on everything that you learned, everything that you read. If you gotta go back to filling out papers, and I mean actual physical papers, not online papers, physical papers. Do you know what you reading? Do you know what you write? Marlene, baby. Appreciate you for dropping those links, serious, baby. Working hard in this damn iced coffee, baby. But it's the truth. Are you going to know what to do in them instances? Or again, are you going to just rely on technology all day? If the schools was to go back to the way it used to be, do you think half of these kids would have a chance? Like how we did? I don't believe so. I don't believe they because guess what? We see what's going on now. A lot of them, their parents ain't doing much with them. I'm giving it real. And this is a reality. There's a lot of them that are not actually doing the bare minimum to make sure their kids are straight. But just like I said, if your kid don't know how to do whatever, that's a problem. That's a real problem for real. And this is why I said, you know, in some instances, go back to the way the system used to be. Because again, there was accountability held on both hands. It wasn't just accountability held on the child. It was the accountability being held on what was being taught at home. Because again, they worked hand in hand. Where some people would say, oh, it's the schools failing the kids. Some people would say, oh, it's the parents failing the kids. I say it's both. Because again, for the parents, you are the first teachers before they even get into any form of grade school or anything. Before you even think to add them into either a private school or public school, you are their teacher. So for those first couple years, you have to read to them. You have to show them how to write. Yes, you have to do the basic things to get them ready. And if you don't know how to read, write, or understand anything even before you get into that first grade of yours, you're pretty much screwed. So come on it. This is why it's important, even for the new age parents. Don't just rely on technology to train your kids. Don't rely on technology to teach your kids. You have to teach your kids. And if you know what you need to know, guess what? Time for you to spread that knowledge to them. And I think that's really something that y'all need to start remembering. Kids are going to soak up all the knowledge they're going to soak up, but it needs to be the right type of knowledge. So again, showing them how to read and write, not relying on technology to do that for them. Because in some instances, I believe some parents are doing that. I'll just play this iPad or I'll just do this and then show him or show her what to be done. No, you have to sit there. Exile, what's going on? Again, can't just rely on one source when it comes to, educating the kids. And again, I believe this where the education failure has begun. Because again, ever since that No Child Left Behind, some of them ones that could barely even pronounce their words right, or you could tell they really had a hard time reading certain words, it's still a thing right now. But again, don't just rely on one source. And that is the truth. On any aspect of life, you can't just rely on one thing. You have to have multiple avenues, again, of education and wisdom because it's going to serve you right, especially when you get into the job field, the work field, or any type of field. Even if you decide to do your own thing, even if you decide to build your own thing, become your own entrepreneur, or whatever it is you're trying to reach for in life, you're still going to have to learn how to read and write, even the basics. If you can't do the basics, you will always be in a problem. Common sense. Mom and dad work, but still drop nuggets. School's a place to go. I mean, it's the truth, though. I mean, the teachers are only going to be teaching you for a certain amount of hours. After that, that's up to your parents. Even on the weekends. On the weekends, there ain't no school unless you had to go to a Saturday school. But again, even then, you still had to learn something. You still had to be a part of what your children are learning. Making sure that your children are also, you know, keeping that required knowledge. Even if you didn't have perfect attendance each day, as long as you was passing the requirements that you was supposed to be passing for the year, pretty much was good. You know, I know there's some people that just like you graduate the same way, perfect attendance and all. But it just is like I said, it hit different. Something in this case right now, shoot, some of these kids be absent from school more than they be in school, and they still pass into the next grade. How does that happen? You know, that's the thing. How again does that happen? Like I said, parents gonna have to really start locking in with your kids. Again, show them how things were done back in the day. Because regardless to the fact that the generations and the times are changing, the basic things that kept us in order as far as reading and writing and understanding and just again taking in all the wisdom should never change. Again, in some instances, you do have to fill out physical forms of paperwork. And that's just a backup just in case if there's a situation going on with what's going on with the internet or what's going on with all of these different internet portals and access. See, yeah, they try to do everything online, but I feel at some point, you know, in some instances, it's probably going to be a split. Or if technology was to crash, nah, it's ain't got to go back to, again, find out actual paperwork. So it's a good thing to know how to read, how to write, how to do the basic things again to make sure you're not messing yourself up for the future. You know? Now I hear you, these dad. Like I said, not everybody was spot on, perfect, going through school. But in the same token, again, it wasn't just one form of accountability. It wasn't just the children being held accountable for their school year, it was the parents as well. But if the parents are barely even doing the bare minimum, the kids are basically just doing whatever. Some of these parents not even checking to make sure that their kids got homework done or if they got projects coming up or and even though yeah they try to say oh well, you gotta download this app, you gotta download this, you gotta do this. No, what happened to actually sending papers home so your parents know what the hell was going on? Come on now. I can remember even before this thing became what it was. They would usually send you home some form of papers. That was the thing. Just so you had it. Just so it wasn't no surprises or I didn't know about this. Parents knew about whatever. Shit, in some instances, they was mailing home report cards before you actually got your report card. So even if you thought in certain instances, a lot of my parents would tell them that I got good grades. They niggas already know what the grades was. So I had to say it that way. That's how I used to, you know, keep everything basically in some form of balance. Don't seem like that right now. Like I said, everything is being done with technology, but what happens if technology takes a step back and you got to revert back to certain things? Are you going to know what you're signing? Are you going to know what you're getting yourself into? 6ix9ine, baby. What's going on, sis? What's going on? You know, but it's the truth. If this shit was to crash to some degree, half of you going to be able to read what you're signing? Or half of you going to really understand what you're doing? Are you going to be able to fill out the basic applications without messing it up? Just an honest question. And I think that's where the scariest part is at. Because again, this generation, parents are barely doing the bare minimum. Some of them don't care as long as their kids out there here, and that's a sad thing. Because those are the ones that are just dependent on the schools to teach them. Our brothers and sisters, this ain't good. And it's not good because if you want to be on a technical level, I don't want to do the graphs today. No doubt, sis. Appreciate you, baby. But I think again, this is the common problem. Because again, you're gonna have to be a part of all forms of your kids' education and psychological growth. So again, what happens if we revert back to the way things was before technology started booming? You don't want to sign some form of lease, prime example, and then now you can't even get up out that lease until the time junction, you know? And if you don't understand certain things, it's not saying that you don't go get help. Yeah, you go get help. But again, you got to look at it too. In some instances, you shouldn't always rely on help, especially when it's the basic things that you should know, your parents should have taught you. Shouldn't need no help. You know? Again, this is what I'm saying. All in all, you got to start reverting back to the old ways, and the old tradition, because it is important. You don't want your children out here with no form of knowledge or no form of education, because how are they going to survive in the world around you? Outside of scamming, stealing, and possibly robbing and doing whatever. A lot of them are not going to get where they need to get because half of them are going to be right in the streets. If you ain't right, if you ain't doing what you need to do. Boosie, what's going on, my guy? But this is what I'm saying. We see that these things do play hand in hand. Because it's not just the schools that's failing the kids, it's the parents. Yeah, we'd love to blame just society in general, or we would like to just blame one out of the whatever, but no. They both go hand in hand. Because again, you shouldn't be relying on one source to educate your kid. And you still have to help your kids with certain aspects of homework. Because if they don't fully understand it, but you do, why would you let them suffer? I hear you, East Dad. It's true. Like it's just, again, you know, you gotta understand that when it's all said and done, your success, your life story, and all of that, again, it does start with you. And if you're gonna be blessed to bring children into the world, you have to be holding yourself responsible. And you gotta also make sure that you're accountable for what's going on with your children. And again, you have to be there, reading to them. Shoot, there's some people that guess what? They reading their kids' books. There are some people who are still following those old traditions. You know, reading a book to them at nighttime before they go to bed, or just reading something to them, or just again being right around them to show them the right way. That is important to their building growth. You know, that's what's up, these days, and that's what I'm saying. Starts at home. Because you got some people who ain't been in school forever, but still know majority of the stuff that is needed, especially if it's supposed to be required for the educational purpose. But again, we also got to look at what the schools are doing, the administrators and everything else. The administration is basically telling these new age teachers that you teach them what you're going to teach them. You're going to use this for the curriculum. And if they don't need to read no books, they don't have to. I've seen some stories where these teachers are saying the same thing that I'm saying right now. It is sad that some of them don't know how to read or write, but they know how to be disrespectful. They know how to try to be physical with these teachers that are trying to help them. Again, a lot of the shit that's going on in these schools, it does start from home. And I'm not saying every kid is a badass. No, you have those who really want to try to learn as much as possible. You got those who really want to try to grow and succeed, and they have to a better life. Some of them want to be where they need to be at because again, it's showing that being educated on both angles, not so much from the school, but from the parents themselves, the education that you bestowed upon them, they understood it. They knew what the mission was. Still know what the mission is. Jewel, baby. Who else popped up in here? Who else popped up in here? My bad. Yeah, you know how I do. I get in them zone. My bad, y'all. Keith, what's going on, my guy? You know, that's what I'm saying. Right now, there's some of y'all who have kids in the system now. And I know, again, things have changed. I haven't been in school forever, so I know a lot of the curriculum has changed. A lot of the requirements have changed. And again, with this child, no child left behind shit, that just elevates everything that is almost pointless now. You go by, I ain't even get a notification that says I'm gonna check the replay. My bad, I ain't even get one. You know, this is what I'm saying though. In most instances, I'm gonna repeat this. School system needs to go back to the way things used to be. If you are not being held accountable at home, not being held accountable at school, you're not going to be held accountable for whatever goes on in life. Like I said, I'm from the era where you couldn't think to be that far behind within the school year because that would be your damaging point. You might have been a little bit, behind on certain things, but that again was depending on what was what. If you know you probably just had some assignments, or those main important ones that need to be done, all right, get them done. The truth, though, you know, I ain't messing with you. Keep going about your business, man. Take little Rufus with you. And again, appreciate you for dropping those links. Serious, baby. Working hard in the space heater, baby. But just it boggles the mind because again, like I said, what happens if we revert back to the old way? What half of these kids in this generation stand a chance? Half of them might strive and actually make it, especially again if they are being raised by the ones that came in the Gen X generation, basically. Again, it's gonna be sad because half of them ain't. That's why again it's important for a lot of you new parents to read to your kids. It's always good to have some form of books around. Because again, what happens if technology was to crash like how it did at one point? What happens if half of these portals can't open, can't even get on, can't log in? You might have something you have to do some work on. Are you going to have those books? Are you going to have the proper dictionary? That's a question right there. Are you going to be able to do what's necessary just in case if that does happen? Hence why it's always important to keep the old traditions locked and stored in the way you're supposed to. So when you start having your own, or if you already got your own, you know how to do things with them. They know how to read and write. You teaching them. Cause I can remember even when we was learning cursive writing, they used to send us those Rexo sheets. They would have the trace out of how certain words are supposed to be put in place, and we had to trace around it. That was one way to learn it. Trace around it and just do what we need to do. So on our own. I think it needs to go back to that. Parents, again, you're gonna have to start showing your kids what you need to show. And cursive writing is important because if you can't write your name in script, if you can't do what's necessary, if you can't sign the dotted line the way you're supposed to, you will be in big trouble. Or at some point, you could fall victim to things that you don't want to fall victim to. That's why again it's important when they young, especially way before school. Read them a book. Again, it's always been important to incorporate that aspect of living. Like read the book with them, but also show them how to read the book. That was important. That's what a lot of our parents back in those days would do. Didn't matter what book was being read, they was reading with us. Parents, it is important again for y'all to read with your kids. That's a whole fact, these dad. You know, there's a lot of things that at some point is going to crash. And are you going to be able to adapt, or are you going to be left behind? I teach my granddaughter the way I learned. I hear you, Geraldine. And that's the thing. The Gen X's, some of them did drop the ball. Hence why I said, you know, what are you doing that you're not trying to pass on the knowledge or pass on the wisdom that you had prior to? It's important again to read with your children. Do certain things of that nature with your children. You're not just building a strong bond with them, but you're also again educating them and showing them what you need to show them. And then they will take interest in wanting to read and write. If you're consistent with it, they'll start being consistent with it. And in certain instances, just like how school would have to test them, you parents are going to have to test them to make sure that they learn everything correctly or that they know everything they need to know. And in some instances, might have days, prime example, the weather's kind of messed up, you can't get out and do much. These would be the days in particular you should be sitting there doing the most with your children, making sure again that they are learning what needs to be learned. You don't overstimulate their brain, but you don't understimulate it either. It has to be a balance. Even on those days like I'm talking about, the rainy days, yeah, let them get their little recess, let them whatever, but then you still sit there, take the time and teach them, learn with them, help them with what they need help with. Again, that's important. That's a whole right. That's a whole fact, James. And that's the thing about it. Nobody thought about this, right? Yeah, we know everything is all grand. We know everything is good for now. But what happens if at some point society takes a shift in the holdback because of technology? Are you going to be able to file the right paperwork? Are you going to know what to separate and want to, differentiate as far as basic paperwork that you're going to need for your house, for your apartment, for your car notes, for everything? Are you going to be able to fill out even the things for credit? Can you fill out the right paperwork, or do you know which paperwork you're filling out for if you're trying to apply for a credit card? These things are important. That's what I'm saying. It's barely even those no more file cabinets, and unless you in certain fields of play, damn near every spot there ain't no real file cabinets no more. You would have to break that shit out on it. These are important things again that it needs to be taught. You know, like I said, show them the basic history, but also show them the basic traditions and just let them know this is what it is. Because again, if everything was to shut down a certain way, How many of y'all actually going to be able to survive? How many of y'all going to be able to adapt to a certain way of living again? That's a whole fact. Like I said, you know, the internet and social media was a good thing, still is a good thing, because again, you got people that you can even find family on here. That's the only thing I said. It's a technology, the way it's being used now, it wasn't meant to be used that way at first. But now we just gave the doorways and the portals to just utilize it for everything, which again, in some instances, is the problem. And that's what I'm saying. It's things that we still learn, still do know, and have history and research on that we could be passing to the children now. Because again, what happens if somewhere down the road when they're coming up, what happens if it reverts back to the old way of living? Are they going to be able to stand the test of time? You know, that just it makes you think. Because again, it's sad. Like you're bringing children to the world, right? The most you should want to do is again make sure your children are highly educated, or at least educated enough to where they understand what they need to understand, so they could prosper in life, especially in adulthood. You ain't teaching your children, prime example, how to read anything. I'm quite, and then you got the school just passing them, even if they don't read, even if they don't write. Some of them could barely even spell their names right, which is a problem. Again, it does start from home, but it also has a lot to do with the school system as well too. So it's a double-edged sword when it comes down to the failure of education. When it comes down to this generation now, and if the kids don't know the differences between certain contracts and paperwork, again, they can set themselves up for something terrible in the future. Now, that's a whole fact. Like I said, just things you gotta take into consideration for real. You know, and again, that's the problem. We have to again start realigning the balance of these kids, so again they don't mess themselves over. But again, in my opinion, like I said, it works both ways. Because if you only just relying on the school system to teach your kids for those 7, 8 hours that they're in school, they gonna definitely mess themselves up. Because again, what you, the parents, are teaching them is the most important thing. It's not just what school is teaching them, what the programs that they do have is teaching them. It's what you're teaching them. And it's also you learning certain things that you need to learn. Because again, we've had situations where now again information is being updated. So again, what you gonna be able to do? Like I said, I seen some people crying up about certain aspects of school being exited out. But this was something that they was trying to prepare people for. In some instances, maybe one or two things are not really as needed as they say it is, you know. But for everything else, nah, it's important. It's important for your kids to know, again, how to file the right type of paperwork, sign the right contracts, everything. They're gonna definitely need to learn math because in some cases there might be some fields where you're gonna have to use math. And if you can't do the basic 2 plus 2, or if you can't even do anything outside of that, you don't know your timetable, multiplication, and all of that, that's a problem. Because now if you get tested in certain scenarios, guess what? You done put in the wrong answer. That'd be like you saying 9 times 4 is 48. How the hell did you get that number? That's what I'm saying. It's time for uh, Gen Zers that are becoming parents. If you do have some form of previous knowledge on how to do things, make sure you bestow that upon your children. You know, yeah, I know he's there. I mean, listen, there's a lot of things right now that are being uncovered as we speak. So it's being added to the history and knowledge that we already know. But again, what happens if we revert back to the old ways? Are these children of this generation going to be able to handle what we had to endure? Guess what? We didn't have iPads and Chat GPT and all this other stuff like these people got now. If we wanted to learn certain things, if we had to gain the information, like I said, we had to revert to going to a library or already having the books in the house. 9 out of 10, your parents probably had some of the books in the house. So you didn't have to go far. But for the things that you had to go to the library. And even when you was using the computer in the library, it wasn't like how it is now. You was only able to type up certain information or look up certain information. But everything else, we had to learn it the hard way. Kids shouldn't be learning the hard way for real. But they also shouldn't get an easy pass neither. That's why I said it works on both angles. If the parents are doing what they're supposed to be doing, just as well as the school system is doing what they're supposed to be doing, then your children might be all right. But if they ain't getting no education or no form of help on either side, that's a problem. You know. 1 second, hold on. No matter what you have learned early in your life, you always have to keep learning updates like Carl. Exactly, James. It's the truth. Even that has, been an upgrade. Like I said, it's just teaching them the basics. Are you really showing them how to read and write? Are you actually taking the time out to make sure they're getting it right? Because if you just doing the bare minimum, that's all you're going to get is the bare minimum. Oh, that's something that people should think about. Granted, the generations has changed, but learning how to read and write, shit, it shouldn't just be an easy thing. Like I said, technology made it too easy for them. They made it handicapped. Like I said, if we were to revert back to the old way, with half of them know how to read and write and file paperwork correctly, it's things you got to think about. Like I said, you mess around, sign the wrong type of contract or deal, it could be in a life bonding contract that you don't want to be a part of. And it's going to be hard to get out that shit, especially if it's one of them quote unquote ironclad ones. So again, gotta be able to read and understand everything. But Chicago, baby. I already know if y'all just tuned in, hit the like button. If y'all new to the channel, like, share, comment, and subscribe. But yeah, it's like I said, it's on both aspects. It's not just up to the school system to teach your kids everything. It's up to you, the parent, to do so as well. Like I said, teach them the right history. Teach them the updated history that is important. You know, you gotta want to see your kids succeed in life. But how they gonna succeed when again they not getting help on any angle? You know, something that people gotta look at, man. I think that again, we just gotta come to a better conclusion. Parents, it is time for you to do more than what you're doing. And it's also important for y'all to start doing what's necessary. If you want certain changes, gotta be part of it. And I believe the only reason why, give me a second, y'all. I believe the only reason why, again, it's easier now is because they ain't gotta do as much no more. But if y'all want changes, y'all gotta be a part of those changes, which means going up to these school districts and voicing your opinion and really implementing what you need to implement. Do they still do parent teacher conferences in some spots? I believe so. Ain't the parents supposed to be finding out what's going on with their child in school? If they really that concerned with their kids and learning, then they would have to be coming up to those things, right? I'm quite sure that's how it was when we was coming up. There's always some form of PTA conference or meeting because again, got to meet with the parent. Got to find out what's going on with the children, especially if children are suffering in certain areas. We need to find out what's going on so we can try to give them the basic help so they could do what's necessary, right? But when you're basically giving them an easy pass, telling them they don't gotta learn nothing on either end because they're still gonna pass, that's gonna backfire on a lot of people, for real. And that's the thing. That is truth right there, Gerald. It's all about foundation. But what foundation or what strong foundation are you building when you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing? Which is again making sure your children understand everything that's being given to them, making sure they're receiving the knowledge in the best possible way. Like I said, I feel that that's one thing that needs to be reverted back and changed back. No, let these kids of this generation experience what we all went through. Gen X's, Gen Y's, whatever, right? Let them experience what we was experiencing. See how that works out. You'll see that it'll be a sad number of people that don't know and probably will have a hard time learning to do. You know? Digital world made people weak too. Everyone here knows that spiritual force. No, that's a whole fact he's at. I mean, in some instances, it is corrupting. It's corrupting the mindset of certain things. Because again, like I said, it's giving these kids an easy pass to be lazy and not apply themselves. That's another thing. How can your children apply themselves to anything, especially coming into young adulthood, when they just getting the easy pass all around the board? Like I said, it all depends on the backgrounds, which is true. You know, like I said, in some instances, it's a gift because again, you know, you're able to search certain things now quicker than what you would have. You're able to network and do things that you probably wouldn't be able to. But then again, like I said, giving it an option to just give them the easy way out. Even if they being homeschooled right now, they can still end up passing and going to the next grade. But again, parents, it's important to again teach your kids the basics of what you know. Teaching them cursive writing, teaching them proper language, again, showing them the differences between different paperworks and how to fill them out. Those is important for life. You know, our sharpest tool in life will always be our brain and how we comprehend things and what we learn. But if you're not even really sitting down with them and studying with them and teaching them the right ways to do it, you are surely setting them up for danger in the future. Another reason why I said in some instances, it has to be a complete structure and a complete foundation for their growth is because again, if you're long gone, you're not gonna be able to know if they applied everything. You don't want to leave out this world whenever it's time for you to leave, and you don't have your kids on the right path until adulthood. Again, it's something that a lot of y'all, even you young parents now, need to think about. The basic reading and writing that you're teaching your kids will go a long way. And whatever other knowledge you give them will definitely enhance that. So again, for some of y'all, stop just relying on technology as one source of information and get back to putting your boots on the ground for real. Make sure your children don't be susceptible to any form of nonsense and fuckery in the future. You already know he's dad. Appreciate you, man. You know, and this is my thing. Whatever you know you can't Google up, better do the old research. Take your ass to the library while there's still books there. While these libraries are still open. Because I can remember at one point they said they was trying to close a lot of the libraries around the United States. And that right there would be a detriment because again, if technology was to crash and you have to go back to the old ways of getting information, how you going to do it when they done shut something down that was important? That's why I say it is important for a lot of y'all to take more interest as far as the educational value is concerned. This is my thing. The double-edged sword. Because again, technology could be useful and it could definitely help you in certain ways, but it could also cripple you. The thing is not to get too reliant on one thing. I think that's something that some of y'all are gonna have to again have some form of balance. But I honestly also feel again, schools need to go back to how things was done. No easy handouts. That no child left behind crap should be abolished. And again, this will hold not just one person accountable. It's going to hold multiple people accountable. If your kid didn't do what they need to do before the school year was out, okay, well, this is where you have to come in and straighten them up so they could do right. Again, stop giving them the easy pass. But again, it's up to the people to go to the school district meetings and everything else. And again, voice your damn opinion. Just as simple, you know. That's all I'm saying is, you know, it is sad to a degree that in some instances technology has definitely been somewhat of a nuisance to some. And it shows, again, barely knowing how to read or write or how to articulate or even how to understand what's being said, that's a problem. I think it's time for change all around the board. Because again, when it's all said and done, if things was to go left, I feel like half of the damn United States would be in some real serious danger. Prime example, if we think we got homelessness now, it's gonna be far worse. But I just got a question though. And anybody welcome to chime in on it. Do you feel it's just the schools failing the children? Do you feel it's the parents, or do you feel it's both? Strong question for tonight, and one that's definitely up for grabs. Like I said, my opinion is both. So again, for you parents, especially you new parents, new guardians, whatever, it will be important for you to read and have some form of educational studies with your children. Because if they're not some form of educated at all, like I said, their lives will not be as easy, or it's going to be harder than what it is now. You know, I think that's important to ask. Give me 1 second, y'all. 1 second. And to be honest, like I said, it's both. My bad, y'all. Workflow. You already know. Thought I had a false alarm going off. Definitely wasn't trying to end the stream too early, but no. The link is pinned in case anybody want to chime in on it, real, because like I said, everybody has different views and opinions. For most, I can already tell that they're gonna say the same thing. It's a combination of both. But I also feel this too. It's also what other education is being given by the people within that community. But I honestly feel, again, gonna have to start doing better. Like I feel like once you get a certain age, there are certain words that shouldn't be a problem for most people to read, but you'd be surprised nowadays. You know, some people could barely read it without struggling, and nobody's perfect. But again, when it is certain things that are going to be important, you should at least know it and understand it again. But again, what you pass on to your offspring is always going to be the most important thing, or it should be the most important thing. Like I said, even down to the structure of the families now. You have family members sometimes that they knew the assignment. Hey, you need help with this nephew? Hey, you need help with this niece? He got you. You know, that's why I said foundation should be strong, not just in the household, but even when you're in school. You know, they in school, trust me, they need to know just as much. But again, take the time out, have these educational studies with your children. Again, it will build not just the bond, but it'll build a strong educational bond because you're doing what you need to do. You know that your child is definitely in good hands now because you've given them the proper things, the proper tools to win and succeed. That's more important than anything, y'all. Some people will say it's not that important, or oh, so what? You know, we don't care. It's not affecting us. Nah, it's gonna affect everybody. Because again, what happens if technology was to take a step back? Are your kids in good hands? Or when they get to adulthood, are they gonna be in good hands? Or are they gonna be a statistic? Choice is up to you. So again, in some instances, it will also again hold people accountable. Some of you will complain and say that there are certain things that are holding you back or holding your children back, when that's not even the case. A lot of times it's you, or a lot of times it's them holding themselves back. Yes, education is very important, will always be important. If you don't know how to read, write, or do math, you're basically screwed. So I believe, again, it's solely up to you, the parents, to give them that extra cushion they're going to need for future. So this way they could pass it on to their generation. And again, the cycle will continue. all in all, though, this conversation was definitely needed again tonight because, again, you know, got to be able to pinpoint these things. And how do we attack it? How do we attack it in a positive note? So, again, the future generations don't have to suffer in the long run. Like I said, my opinion, my overall thesis, it goes both ways. They're not getting fed the proper knowledge. They won't be knowledgeable for the things they're going to need in the future. And in some instances, if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, at some point it will lead those same youth into it'll lead into all forms of damnation. And then what do you think some of them gonna be? They're gonna rely on the streets to survive. And again, you could strive in multiple areas and multiple occupations if you apply the knowledge and you just try and don't give up. Parents, don't give up on your children. Again, teach them what's necessary. Because even when you're long gone, you want to at least know that they know everything and know the most important things. Like I said, the link is pinned in case anybody want to chime in, but if not, I ain't gonna hold y'all all night. Just wanted to have this little light conversation because again, I feel, in some instances, the schools and the parents are failing these ones now. Like I said, they could barely read or write, but they know how to curse you out. They know how to be disrespectful. They know how to fight. Everything else. They know how to get mad at you when you're trying to help them. They know how to do TikToks. They know how to do everything else in the classroom, but they could barely read a book. So this is something we're gonna have to touch up on another day, definitely. But well, it was a good conversation tonight. Appreciate everybody that was tuning in. Appreciate those in the bushes watching. And for those celebrating birthdays this week again, we didn't forget about you. Hopefully y'all enjoy y'all birthday weeks. Hopefully y'all keep yourself safe. Again, if you blessed to see another year, give your praises where it's due. Be safe, be vigilant, be observant, and again, enjoy every moment of life and keep creating those memories. And like I said, I'm gonna bring back up this topic again. You always know sometimes I'm gonna come back with a part two, or I'm gonna do the trilogies. I think at some point, some of these topics I'm gonna do trilogies on. So be prepared. Be very prepared. Because again, we need to have these talks. If we don't have these talks and conversations, how are we ever going to really bring awareness where it's needed? How are we ever going to get to some point of changing the dynamics of things if we're not on the same page? But appreciate y'all for rocking out. Appreciate everybody that's been a part of the build and still becoming a part of the build. And yes, we still going to keep having these great convos. And for those that missed yesterday's live stream, I suggest you watch that replay because I'm touching up on that as well too. Like I said, there's certain things that play hand in hand. And until we eliminate some of the aspects of things, we're gonna keep getting the same results. And at some point, we should be tired of those results. We should want better. And if we knew better, we would do better. So yeah, definitely gonna chime back in on this conversation. Man, before I get up out of here, one more again, y'all. One more again. But yeah, let me get my ass up out of here. I see y'all up in here getting your dance on, man. Um, I'm gonna see. I might have another topic tomorrow. If not, I'll be back Wednesday definitely. And again, the link will be pinned in case anybody want to chime in. Always a blessing to bring sun to the people, and that's what we got to keep doing. Till we push the ball, push the envelope the way we need to push it. We're gonna keep having these talks and discussions because it's neat. Let me get my ass up out of here. If y'all was new to the channel, like, share, comment, and subscribe. Shout outs to the replay game. Shout outs to the Shadow Mafia and the Shadow Babies. Y'all know what it is, baby. For everybody that was in attendance tonight, y'all already know that love is love and it'll be reciprocated as such. I don't know how to be fake. All I can do is give you real. That's all I'm gonna do is give you real topics and real builds. And the next topic, because I still wanna touch back on that conversation I was having yesterday. Apparently there was 3 kids that were unalived at that party I was telling you about. 14 shot, 3 unalived, but none of them was over the age of 15. None of them was even, one of them wasn't even the age of 10. That's why I said we definitely got to keep having these talks because at some point, the senseless violence that is plaguing and cursing some of these communities is taking out the most precious gifts, taking out these children. How can some of these children be the next things or the future, whatever's, when their lives are being cut short because of senselessness and violence? I am going to say this, though, for those who need to hear it. If you know you have real situations, especially out in the streets, I don't think you should be trying to be around family, especially when there's a possibility that you're going to have some people who don't care that will try to take those shots and even try to take out your family just to get to you or take out the people close to you to get to you. If you know you got serious beef out there, keep yourself away from the ones that you love, at least until you handle your situation properly. Because again, no child should have to worry about not making it to school or not being able to finish out their life. But also, it's up to some of these adults that's a part of that nonsense to think clearly and rational before you just decide to do anything. But like I said, we're going to definitely recap on that. And again, if you did miss yesterday's show, make sure you catch that replay. And also, if you need some good laughs, don't forget about them shorts. We definitely up in it. Y'all stay safe. Keep that third eye open. And until the next live, we out of here. Peace and